Hi, welcome to Georgia Tech CS 1331's debugging series. This is video 4. My name is Lauren, and in this video we'll be going over logic errors. So in our previous videos, we've been working and fixing our calculator class. As a refresher, our calculator class is intended to ask the user for an arithmetic expression. It will evaluate the expression, print the answer of the expression, and then thank the user for using the calculator. So let's go ahead and check and make sure that all of our arithmetic methods work properly. It's important to make sure that we're checking our code. That way, when we start allowing users to use our code, they don't run into the issues. So we're going to compile our code saying javac calculator.java, and it compiles. So let's go ahead and run java calculator. And I'm going to first check our addition. 1 plus 2, that's 3.0, so that works. I'm going to run our program again. I do not have to recompile this time because I have not changed my code at all. In this case, I'm going to try 3 minus 2, and that's 1, so that works properly as well. So this time, let's try and see if we can run our multiplication correctly. I'm going to do 3 times 1. Uh-oh, that's not right. 3 times 1 should have printed out 3.0, but instead, it printed out 2.0. So this is called a logic error because we're not getting an error or exception that's stopping our program from running. It's running fine, but it's not the correct output that we expected. So these are a little bit more tricky to debug. It causes us to search for the line that's causing the issue. The first step I'll take here is to actually check our multiplication or multiply method. The reason I'm doing this is because our add and subtract methods worked properly, and we didn't actually run into a logic error until we tried to multiply two numbers together. So I'm hoping that we can find the error in our multiply method. So let's read what we're doing here. We're returning a double. We're taking in our first expression and our second expression, which our goal is to multiply them together. So we have double answer, and we're assigning our multiplication to answer. So let's see if we're doing the correct multiplication. So we're doing double.parseDouble first expression, which takes our string and makes it into a double, and then subtracting. Wait a minute, this is our multiply method, and we have subtraction instead of multiply. This is probably why when we typed in 3 multiplied by 1, we got 2.0, because 3 minus 1 is 2.0. A lot of times, when we copy and paste codes, we can run into errors. We can run into errors with not changing code correctly. So it's important to double check when we do copy and paste code and make sure that we're changing things properly. So now that I've changed this to multiply, we're going to save our code and recompile. Javac calculator.java, and it compiles. Great. So let's go ahead and try running it. And again, I'm going to type in 3 times 1, which in this case turns out to be 3.0. So our issue has been fixed. Great. So now that we know our multiplication method works, let's try dividing. So we're going to say Java calculator, and let's try 4 divided by 2, which is 2.0, and that's correct. Let's try doing exponents now. So I'm going to say Java calculator. And I'm going to say 2 raised to the third power, which should be 8. Oh no, the answer we got was 16. So again, we've run into a logic error. Our code works fine, but it's not actually giving us 2 to the third power. So let's check our exponent method. Again, we're checking the exponent methods because we're assuming that the rest of our other methods that we've already checked are correct. It's a starting point to solve where the error is actually happening. So let's take a look at what's happening here. We're taking in our first expression, which will be the base number, and our second expression, which will determine what we've raised that base number to the power of. Then we have string temp, which is going to be assigned to our first expression. And then we have double answer equals 0. So we have a for loop here, which should be looping through and calling multiply, with first expression and temp. The reason we're saying answer equals multiply first expression and temp is because exponents are essentially multiplying the same number repeatedly, which is what our for loop is attempting to do. And then we're setting temp equal to the string.value of answer. So we should be getting 2 times 2 times 2. Or in this case, the way we're writing it, 2 times 2, which equals 4, and then we're doing 4 times 2. So in order to make sure that we're actually doing this properly, I'm going to insert print statements into my for loop here. So I'm going to say system.out.println. The first thing I'm going to do is ensure that I'm writing a descriptive comment so I know what I'm printing out. So in this case, I'm going to say first expression and then print out the first expression, and then I'm going to be printing out temp and the temp variable. So let's save and compile that. And we see that I've misspelled println. There we go. And we will save and recompile again. And now we've compiled correctly. So let's try running this. Java calculator. And again, I'm going to raise 2 to the third power. Look at how helpful our descriptive comments were. Instead of just printing out 2, 2, 2, and 4, and us having to guess what these numbers represent, we're explicitly telling ourselves, this is the first expression, and this is temp. Every time we reprint out a first expression, we're going through the loop another time. So let's see. We have first expression, 2, times temp, which is 2. And that's what we said over here should happen. We should be saying 2 times 2. So then we go through the loop a second time, and we can see that the first expression is still 2, and temp becomes 4, which again, we said over here is how our exponent method should work. We should end up having 4 times 2, which would get us 8.0. It looks like we've entered the loop a third time. And we get 2 as the first expression and temp as 8.0, which means we're multiplying 2 times 8. And that's why we're getting 16.0. We're going through the loop one more time than we actually need to. So let's look again at our for loop. So we're saying int I equals 0, okay? And then we're saying while I is less than integer dot parseInt second expression, which means we're going through our loop one less time than the amount that our second expression is. Well, because our loop is going through once too many times, we can subtract 1 in our expression here to ensure that we go through the loop one less times than we originally were. I'm going to comment out our print statements. In case we have to use those again, we won't have to type them out. I'm going to save our code and try recompiling. Java C, calculator.java. Okay. And now that we've compiled properly, let's try running. And again, we're going to try to raise 2 to the third power, and we can see that the answer is 8.0, which is correct. Thanks again for watching our debugging series. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to come into office hours or ask questions on Piazza.